Hey guys, so today we are looking at the Mongol invasions of both Hungary and Poland. So we're going back to Europe after being more in the east. So this will be very interesting. We did cover earlier, I think when Subutai and their encounters with his encounters with Europe and just how he kind of decimated everybody. But Subutai was a great general. I'm not sure. I think this is gonna take place way after his time, so we'll see if the Mongols of later can match the success of the early Mongols. So I guess we'll find out, won't we? So the link to this video by Kings and Generals is down in the description down below, and yeah, if you want to watch my not watch if you want to help my channel out in any way, shape, or form, I'd really appreciate it if you could like, comment, and subscribe. It'd really help my very small but very humble channel grow, and I'd appreciate it a lot, my friends. With that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let's watch the Mongols' invasion of Hungary and Poland.
The devastation of the Rus principalities and Eastern Europe under Subutai and Batu was one of the most expertly orchestrated campaigns of the Mongols. Though they withdrew early in 1242, this was not the end of their interactions with Europe. In this video, we will present the return of Mongol armies to Hungary and Poland through the lens of the rise and fall of the Mongol general Nogai. After withdrawing from the wreckage of the Hungarian kingdom in 1242, Batu made his encampment in the Volga steppe. While Hungary and Poland were left outside of the empire, Bulgaria and the Rus princes were now vassals of the Great Khan. Batu was important in the ascension of Mongkur in 1248, and sources of the period portray Batu as Mongkur's viceroy of the west. Though he continued to live as a nomad, Batu built a capital, Sarai, on the lower Volga River, the vast steppe lands around it serving as the heart of his empire. The devastated Rus cities were of little importance as of yet. The great wealth to be had was by control of the overland trade routes and their access points, such as the Black Sea ports and the Caucasus. With Batu's death in 1255, and the sudden deaths of his son Sartak and grandson Ilagchi, his brother Berka became Khan. Berka was a convert to Islam, at this time still uncommon within the Jochid territories. Certainly his religion played a role in the souring of relations between Berka and his cousin Hulagu when the latter destroyed Baghdad in 1258, but conflict did not break out until 1262. Hulagu's seizure of the Caucasian territories and Azerbaijani pastures and the murder of Jochid princes in his retinue in February of 1260 on pretenses of sorcery were the immediate casus belli. Indeed, it was the son of one of these executed princes who led the retaliation, Nogai, a great-grandson of Jochi. Born to a concubine around 1240, Nogai could not become Khan and focused his energies on the military. He converted to Islam at a similar time to Berka and became a two-man commander. With 30,000 men, Berka and Nogai marched to avenge Nogai's father, Tutar, taking Derbent in summer 1262, encamping outside Shirvan. Hulagu sent first his vanguard under Shiraman Noyan before setting out with his main army in August, while another Ilkhanid force under Samagar and Abitai approached. Nogai destroyed Shiraman's army in mid-October, but was forced to flee after an encounter with Samagar and Abitai. When Hulagu learned of Nogai's flight, he marched to Shamaki, where he forced Berka to withdraw. By December, Berka and Nogai retreated past Derbent, leaving a contingent to man that mighty fortress, though it fell quickly to the Ilkhanid forces on the 7th of December, and they continued to pursue Berka and Nogai. On the 15th, Nogai suffered a major defeat at the hands of Shiraman Noyan, Abitai and Hulagu's son, Abaka. Seeing Nogai withdraw to the steppe, Abatai and Shiraman urged Abaka to return to his father, but the prince declined. With reinforcements sent by Hulagu, he followed the Jochid's trail, finding Berka's abandoned camp on the north bank of the frozen Terek River, tents, herds, treasures and families abandoned in their haste. For 3 days, Abaka's men celebrated their victory. They had, however, stumbled into a trap. On the 13th of January 1263, Berka and Nogai returned, catching Abaka's men unprepared.
Oh, wow.
The Ilkhanid forces flew across.
Okay, alright, that's really cool to see. Yeah, I was gonna say, the very beginning, the Ilkhanid managed to beat them back, and I was like, well, that's a victory for them, I suppose. But, this is what I love, seeing that old Mongol trickery at work, leaving behind all that so they can just, you know, let themselves be defeated by victory, so they can wheel about and just crush them when they're caught off guard. That's I love that. That's great. That's a great move there.
The frozen river, but under their weight, the ice broke beneath them.
Ooh.
Abaka escaped back to his father, and Berka retook Derbent. Kublai Khan was unable to prevent the continued conflict between the now independent Golden Horde and the Ilkhanate. Hulagu died in 1265 and was succeeded by Abaka, an opportunity for Berka to secure the Caucasus. Nogai set out with a large army from Derbent in early summer 1265. In late July or August, Nogai was met by a force under Abaka's brother Yoshmut on the Aksu River in modern Azerbaijan. An arrow took Nogai's eye, and his army was defeated with heavy losses, withdrawing to Shirvan.
Dang, that's brutal, that sucks.
Meanwhile, both Abaka Khan and Berka Khan arrived with reinforcements, forming up on banks across the Kura River, shooting arrows at each other but unable to ford the river. For 14 days they waited, until Berka moved towards the Georgian capital of Tiflis, but fell ill and died en route, leading to a general withdrawal to Sarai. This time Abaka did not pursue, but built a wall and ditch along the north bank of the Kura River. Losing his father, his eye, his Khan and several battles, Nogai moved west, to the land between the Dniester and the Danube.
Yeah, things have not gone well for Nogai, huh? A lot of elds kind of starting to rack up. Though I'm assuming now that he's moving here, he's gonna try to prove himself, because he can be Khan, so he's devoting himself fully to the military aspect, as kings and generals said. And obviously, with all this defeat, I'd imagine that would get to him psychologically, right? You know, like, dang, this is all I do in life, and I'm suffering all these elds. I need to really gain some victories, you know? So I'm assuming this is where the perspective of maybe taking Hungary and Poland and fighting them might come into play for Nogai. I'm assuming, I don't really know, but we'll see.
Rivers. Berka was succeeded by Batu's grandson, Monka Temur, who consolidated the Golden Horde. Issuing coins in his own name and conducting a census, he granted the Orthodox Church in Rus exemption from taxation, and it became a staunch ally in upholding Mongol rule. Campaigns were largely halted against the Ilkhanate, though he maintained good relations with the Mamluks and meddled in the affairs of Central Asia, briefly assisting the rising Kaidu. Monka Temur's relationship with Nogai wasn't as strong as it had been with Berka, though he entitled him as the Beyla Bey and largely left Nogai to his own affairs. Returning to Eastern Europe, we will briefly mention developments since the 1240s. The Mongol withdrawal gave Bela IV breathing room, and he started building up the defences of his kingdom, encouraging the nobility to build stone castles west of the Danube and on the kingdom's northeastern borders. The now depopulated Hungarian plain he gave to the Cumans, his allies, through a marriage alliance between his son Stefan and their Khan's daughter. Marriage ties were also established with a number of his neighbours, but his requests for aid from the Pope fell on deaf ears, and he fought with King Ottokar II.
Yeah, we did touch on this when we covered the How to Defend Against the Mongol series by Kings and Generals a while back, we did know that Hungary and, more Eastern Europe did, and how they were preparing against the Mongols, and obviously the idea of building castles and much stronger fortifications on higher, plains was a really big part of their defensive strategy. And mainly that.
of Bohemia, the inheritor of the Austrian Babenberg territory. In 1253, the westernmost Rus principalities, Galicia and Volhynia, declared their independence from the Mongols under Prince Daniil Romanovich. Daniil was crowned King of Ruthenia by papal envoys, but that crown was all the aid he'd received from the West.
That's the funniest thing ever. I remember that. Here, you get to have a crown, you're a sovereign, and that's literally all they gave the dude, and then they just bailed on him. That sucked.
And it brought the Mongols' attention. Initial efforts by the general Keremsa to assert authority over Daniil were unsuccessful, until Berke replaced Keremsa with the commander Burundai, a veteran who had distinguished himself during the invasion of Batu. In 1259, Burundai entered Galicia, Daniil fleeing to Poland and then Hungary. In Daniil's absence, his brother Vasilko and son Lev submitted to Burundai, who ordered the destruction of the fortifications of Galicia and Volhynia.
Dang.
Also in 1259, Berke's envoys reached Bela IV, demanding his military assistance and a marriage alliance. Bela used the threat to try to leverage the Pope into providing him aid, which the papacy declined, which forced the king to nominally submit to the Mongols, appeasing them with tribute. It would certainly
the Pope ain't helping anybody.
explain why, when Burundai asserted the horde's suzerainty over Galicia-Volhynia, he left Hungary unscathed while he marched into Poland in November 1259. It is unknown how many men Burundai brought with him, but his Mongol and Turkic horsemen were reinforced by a sizable Galician-Volhynian contingent under Vasilko Romanovich. Burundai bypassed Lublin and Zawikost, crossing the Vistula River, and began ravaging Polish territory. His army came to Sandomir, surrounding and enclosing it with a stockade, trapping the citizens within. Missiles were hurled at the defences for 3 days, with so many arrows the defenders were unable to even peer over the walls. By the 4th day, ladders brought the Mongols into the city. The inhabitants fled to the keep, but on the narrow drawbridge, many fell to their deaths into the moat.
Ooh, that's...
Those seeking shelter in the town's church were trapped as fire spread.
Oh my goodness, that's brutal.
And whoever survived the conflagration was driven out onto the plain before the city and slaughtered.
My goodness, man.
By April 1260, Burundai's army withdrew, prisoners and loot in tow. A Mongol attack is recorded on Lithuania and Prussia in the same year, inflicting heavy losses on the Teutonic Knights, and it may have been that Burundai's forces brought fire and ruin there as well. Europe was largely spared in the 1260s due to the Berke-Hulagu War, aside from a brief campaign in 1264. Michael VIII Palaiologos restored Byzantine rule in Constantinople in 1261, only to find himself sandwiched between the Ilkhanate in Anatolia and the Golden Horde in the Balkans. Seeing the
Yep. Yeah, it's funny to know that during the whole rise of the Mongols and the aftermath of their fall, the Byzantines were busy, the Romans had been sacked and the Constantinople and essentially divided among the Crusaders, and while the Mongols are all happening and spreading, the Romans were just focused on trying to will themselves back into existence, right? Back into an empire. The moment they do, they realize now they're completely surrounded by Mongols. That sucks, man. the Romans and their awful luck in their Byzantine era is amazing.
Ilkhans as the more immediate threat, he sent an illegitimate daughter to be married to Hulagu Khan, imprisoned the Seljuk Sultan Kaykaus II, and detained Mamluk envoys travelling to the Golden Horde. Berke wanted the Bosphorus open, and with assistance from the Bulgarian Tsar Constantine Tik, sent an army into Thrace, rescuing the Sultan in 1264 and sending Emperor Michael fleeing to Constantinople. When Nogai came to the region in the late 1260s, he was to become the main conduit for contacts between the Khanate and the Byzantine Empire. After his arrival, Nogai's forces were invited to attack Emperor Michael on behalf of his enemy, John of Thessaly, and Nogai's army plundered Thrace in late 1271. Emperor Michael couldn't defeat these raiders in the field, so he one-upped his Thessalian enemy. In 1272, he organized a marriage alliance, marrying another one of his illegitimate daughters, Euphrosyne.
I love, again, you gotta use your brain in this one. The Byzantines, the Romans are so not at the best shape, so they gotta use diplomacy in order to get out of these sticky situations. Which I love to see. I just love he's giving away illegitimate daughters, the emphasis on the illegitimate. Just, yeah, dude, keep popping out more babies, bro, cause you're gonna probably need a lot more at this rate, you know?
To Nogai, and granted him the title of Archon. Nogai didn't care for the gifts of the Byzantines, but he did make good on the requirements of the marriage alliance, prohibiting his forces and those of the Bulgarians from attacking the Byzantines. Further, it
again, man, that I love seeing the Byzantine diplomacy at work and how they get themselves out of situation, not through brute militaristic force, but just big brain diplomatic maneuvers like that, you know?
laid the foundation for Nogai's own regional ambition. The death of Monka Temur Khan in 1280, succeeded by his weaker brother Toda Monka, removed the only figure who held a leash on Nogai. In 1282, Michael VIII died while preparing to meet up with Nogai to march against John of Thessaly, and was succeeded by his less capable son Andronikos II. This left Nogai the senior figure of southeastern Europe. The new Bulgarian Tsar, George Terter, recognized Nogai's overlordship in 1284, sending his son Svetoslav as hostage and marrying his daughter to Nogai's son Chaka. Nogai cast his influence further afield, sending Buddhist relics to the Ilkhan Argun and continuing his own diplomacy with the Mamluks. He provided troops and ordered Lithuania.
This is quite the role reversal. Nogai, who earlier was mentioned couldn't even become a Khan, is now on kind of been given this golden opportunity to just be the main guy. I imagine what's going through his head, he must be enjoying the fact this change of fortune as things that are looking up on him, right? You know, the Byzantines getting married into that, and then the Bulgarians marriage alliance. Like, I imagine he must be feeling pretty good about his rising stock in the world, eh?
Reinforcements for Lev Danilovich of Galicia-Volhynia's unsuccessful campaign into Poland in 1280. He increasingly meddled in the politics of the Golden Horde. Todomonko Khan deposed Alexander Nevsky's son Dmitry as Grand Prince in 1280, giving the title to Dmitry's brother. By 1282, Nogai assisted Dmitry in retaking the princely title. Nogai's representatives demanded less taxes than the Khans, which encouraged immigration into his territory, to the chagrin of Rus princes who saw their tax base running away from them, sending a formal complaint to Todomonko Khan, who did nothing. By 1285, Nogai's attention was drawn to Hungary. Here, despite the Cuman leanings of King Ladislaus IV, himself of Cuman descent, a Cuman uprising rocked the kingdom, culminating in a battle on Lake Hod in 1282. the Cumans who escaped fled to Nogai and urged him to act. Seeing one of the main lines of Hungary's defense having fled, and hearing of the poor relationship between young King Ladislaus and his barons, Nogai must have thought Hungary an easy target. Together with the ambitious prince Telabuka, Nogai set out for Hungary. The sources provide little detail on this campaign, but it is clear that this was not on the scale of 1241, intended not for conquest but to pillage. Lev Danilovich of Galicia-Volhynia was ordered to supply troops, but attacks by the Polish Duke Leszek the Black kept him from doing so. Nogai and Telabuka's army, augmented by other Rus princes, likely travelled through Galician-controlled Transcarpathia, entering the Hungarian kingdom in February 1285 through the northeastern Sáros and Szepes counties. The Mongol army split sometime after, cutting across the northeast and raiding as far as the environs of Buda and Pest. The Mongols did not come prepared for sieges and bypassed heavily fortified points. Nogai likely intended to use the maneuverability of his forces to stay ahead of the Hungarian main army, moving quickly and apparently dividing his men into small regiments to raid. But since the 1240s, Hungary had seen a growth in the number of baronies. Rather than a main army raised against them, the Mongols were confronted by local defensive forces wherever they moved. By breaking his forces off as he...
Wow. Okay. Alright, I'm liking what I'm seeing. So, Nogai is still operating with, the idea that Hungary has a major unified single force and he can just continue dancing around them and they can't touch him. But this is so interesting now that Hungary has adapted, having more individual forces scattered around, and now he's dividing his force to be picked off unawares. I mean, we'll see if it works, but that's an interesting change. If it does, that's an interesting change right there, eh?
He allowed them to be overwhelmed in local engagements. One defender with particular success was a Master George, founder of the Shuish noble house in Sáros County, who, with his own locally raised forces, overcame Mongol troops several times.
Holy crap. My goodness. You know, it kind of reminds me of the Roman / Byzantine Dema system, where like local areas would have their own like military forces there stationed. At its height, like the Dema system for the Byzantine Romans was kind of really amazing. So, yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, like, not, like, having your barons kind of be their own strong force, that they can kind of hold their own in some sense. Granted, though, obviously, if your barons end up being treacherous, then that becomes a problem, but when it's working, it's really well, like with the Byzantine Dema system. So, I don't know, I'm a huge fan of the Dema system from the Romans. I think it was great,
and sent their severed heads to King Ladislaus.
Dang.
Though the Mongols were faced by stiff resistance, they were able to capture their share of prisoners and loot. The sources indicate famine, hunger and sickness among the Mongols. Nogai and Telabuka must have decided to cut their losses and withdraw, moving east in two main forces by the end of March 1285. Nogai's army moved through Transylvania, but found the local peoples, Saxons, Vlachs,
oh my gosh, it looks like they're trying to cut his line of leaving. Look, they're all mobilizing in front of him. It looks like they're trying to prevent him from leaving, while Ladislav's main army is coming from behind to no doubt engage Nogai as he's trying to get out. If it works, this could be really dangerous for Nogai,
Sekelite cavalry blocking the passages, inflicting serious reverses on Mongol parties and freeing a large number of prisoners.
Oh my goodness.
An army under King Ladislaus further harassed their retreat. Telebuka's army
Dang, Nogai suffered a good amount of damage there, eh?
tried to cross the Carpathian Mountains, but the spring weather, rain, snow and hail, destroyed the roads before them, forcing them to go off the main routes. Many were lost in the mountains, starving or freezing to death, or helped to the same end by the locals.
Dang, dude. That invasion ended up becoming really costly for Nogai. Again, the unexpected great resistance and that retreat really messed him up. Wow.
It was an ignominious end to the campaign, though losses were likely exaggerated. On Nogai's return to his territory in 1285, he led an expansion into Dobruja and the Danube Delta, taking Ezekcia and making it his capital. In 1287, Todemonka was deposed by a group of Jochid princes, who appointed Nogai's comrade Telebuka as Khan. In December 1287, Nogai and Telebuka marched into Poland to punish Duke Leszek for the earlier defeat of Lev Danilowicz and Leszek's raids on Galicia-Volhynia. Nogai and Telebuka entered the country separately. Telebuka crossed the frozen Vistula and made an effort to take Sandomir. The defenders had learned from 1259. Telebuka was forced back and marched to Krakow. There, he found Nogai had invested the city since Christmas. Frustrated by Nogai and his own defeats, Telebuka abandoned the campaign, pillaging through Poland and his vassals.
What a disaster. Again, watching this series has been great for me, because again, the Mongols were unstoppable at the beginning. Season 1, early on, the Mongols were just basically unbeatable, but something happened after like around Kublai's era where they just started taking L's from everybody. Japan, Indonesia, Vietnam, India, now Hungary and like everyone just got better at fighting the Mongols and they just kept losing everywhere. Like their invincibility that they once had completely shattered, and watching that has been the most interesting part of this series. From all these Mongol videos, just seeing how the mighty fall. They're still very powerful. I'd argue one of the most powerful places, still even the fractured Mongol Empire is still some of the most powerful khanates in the world, but they're not like indestructible as they used to feel, you know? So yeah, I find that the most interesting part.
Galicia-Volhynia on the way home. The defenders of Krakow fought bravely, and Nogai could only ravage the city's outskirts before he too withdrew in February 1288. For their valiant defense, Duke Leszek granted Krakow tax exemptions. Nogai blamed Telebuka for the defeat and began looking to undermine the Khan. He did not have long to wait. Monka Temur's son, Tokhta, was targeted by Telebuka and his allies and fled, seeking Nogai's assistance. Nogai told him to prepare an army while he pretended to fall deathly ill and made his way to Telebuka. Seemingly about to die, he summoned Telebuka and his princes to his camp, and while coughing up blood clots he had previously swallowed, he urged
Dude, Nogai. I love seeing these big brain trickery moves from the Mongols. Again, this guy is playing chess right now.
the princes to make peace with him before his death. With their guard let down by the old man's smooth talk, Tokhta arrived with his forces and killed the princes.
My goodness, dude, Nogai, bro. Very underhanded, but nice 5D chess move from him. Wow.
By 1291, Tokhta was Khan of the Golden Horde. Nogai returned to his Ordu and expanded. he appointed a puppet Bulgarian Tsar, Smilets, and forced the Serbian king Stefan Milutin to accept him as overlord and send his son Stefan as hostage to Nogai's court. In Ezektia, he was minting coins in his own name. His direct control in the Golden Horde stretched past the Dniester towards Crimea, and he ordered the deaths of rival Jochid princes and officials. Resistance was growing within the Horde to Nogai's ambitions, and Nogai and Tokta Khan were soon butting heads over influence over the Rus.
Nogai is too competent and too dangerous to be anyone's underling. You know, he obviously has ambition, and the only thing preventing him, I think, is the fact that he can't be a Khan due to his, you know, birth and whatnot. But I think if he could, he would try already, or would have already tried. But that's the thing, though. Like, he still, at least in practice, is acting like a sovereign, even if he can't officially claim the title of one. And yeah, this is the kind of the problem. He has to either go or become independent, at least to the rest of the Golden Horde. Like, someone this ambitious just can't be an underling, you know?
With tensions building, the spark came when Nogai demanded Tokta hand over his own father-in-law. Tokta refused, and Nogai declared his independence, declaring himself Khan in 1296.
Wow, see what I mean? Either independence or he has to die.
In late 1297, on the banks of the Aksay River off the Lower Don, their armies met. With over 40 years' experience as a commander, Nogai had the better of this first engagement, defeating and routing Tokta's army. Tokta fled, but Nogai failed to pursue. In Crimea, Nogai's grandson had been killed trying to collect tribute, and Nogai was determined to avenge him, seizing Kaffa and other cities, but spreading his forces thin. Several princes on the Lower Dnieper rebelled, and while Nogai's sons crushed them, other princes deserted to Tokta, who in the meantime had called up reserves.
So this is the big problem. He gained a great victory off the bat, but he was unable to fully capitalize on pursuing and crushing his rival. So now he's getting to lick his wounds and fight another day while Nogai is stretching himself thin, putting down rebellions and revolts. That's not good. That's really not good right there for Nogai.
From the east and the border with the Ilkhanate. Nogai sent messages to the Ilkhan, Gazan, hoping for his intervention. But while in Sarai, Tokta had organized a truce with Gazan, allowing Tokta to bring up those border units. Nogai realized he had outplayed his hand and withdrew to his own territory in the face of a full invasion by Tokta in 1299, with as many as 60,000 horsemen bearing down on him. Late that year, Nogai was caught on the southern Bug River. While the armies stood before each other, the old dog tried one last trick. He sent a messenger to Tokta, telling him he was a sick old man and put the blame on his sons for the fighting, while he sent...
Oh man, again, you think Tokta would be aware of, like, Nogai's trickery, right? Also, what with the whole killing the princes thing, knowing that Nogai is, you know, a crafty fellow, not above underhanded lies and trickery and deceit. So if Tokai learned from first hand in his part of the schemes of killing the princes before, he would know that Nogai is full of crap. But we'll see, man. I love that card Nogai keeps playing. He's like, I'm old, I'm sick. And then it's just like, yeah. You know, it kind of reminds me like Emperor Palpatine in like Revenge of the Sith, where like where like Mace Windu has him cornered and he's like, Anakin, I'm weak. Like, don't kill me, Anakin. Don't let him kill me. I'm weak. I don't know why I'm getting those kind of vibes from Nogai. What an interesting character he is.
his son Chaka upstream to flank Tokhta.
And of course, with all the tricks in the book, Nogai opts to use the oldest trick, which is the flanking maneuver. But again, his enemy should be aware of his deceit and his lies, but we'll see.
Tokhta's scouts alerted him and ordered an assault on Nogai's tired army, which shattered.
Dang.
Fleeing with 17 horsemen, Nogai's troop was charged by a group of Rus cavalry and he was severely wounded. Captured, he told, "I am Nogai, take me to Tokhta, for he is the Khan." He began to be led away, but died of his injuries before he reached Tokhta.
Dang.
Thus ended.
Nogai was an interesting protagonist we just followed. From his humble origins, his failures, his rise in prominence, but he was like Icarus, he flew too close to the sun, he overstretched his ambition, and then it led to his ruin. Wow. Interesting fellow.
The reign of Nogai Khan. His sons continued to be a nuisance in the area for several years, his son Chaka briefly taking control of Bulgaria, but the last of the Nogaids was soon crushed. It is this period, the rule of the Mongols over the Rus, and the ultimate collapse of the Golden Horde, which we will examine in the next video, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button.
Well guys, that was the end of the video, and tomorrow we'll cover way more about the Mongols. Bye everyone.